Now kids have their own bedrooms
Yeah,
and they spend all their time in their bedrooms.
yeah,
And yeah, they don't learn that kind of social interaction. There's the social interaction at school, but there too, the teachers are like, we're all friends, aren't we? And so they never learn conflict resolution. These social issues are out there as well. And yeah, like as you say, if you've only ever been in your own nuclear family, and in fact you spend all your time in your bedroom, you don't even really interact with anybody in your nuclear family, which of course is smaller than nuclear families were 30 years ago, you got no social skills to speak of.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about the new viral news about Japan, and this is concerning a matching app that is being funded by the Tokyo government in order to increase the fertility rate. Now, there's two things you got to know about this. First of all, is that this is not an app yet. There is no app, there's only a website. And the other thing is that, which is mostly concerned by the Japanese, is that most of the engineers working on this are Chinese. Tell us, what is your opinion on this? Is this even effective to increase the birth rate?
Well, I think the logic of the Tokyo metropolitan government is that if we can increase the number of people who are getting married, then naturally those married people will reproduce. And therefore, they think that this is going to increase the birth rate. I suppose it could happen, but it does seem like a bit of a long shot. When I first heard the news that the Tokyo metropolitan government was talking about creating an app to get young people together and help them move in the direction of marriage, it sort of triggered a memory for me that this has been done in Japan before. And I kind of had a bit of a look at my notes, and I think it was about 8, 9, 10 years ago, several different municipalities across the country were sponsoring speed dating.
Mhm.
And for a while, this was quite a flutter. And I guess to some degree, it did actually have an impact of matching people up and giving them an opportunity to meet, which they had not previously had the opportunity for. But again, it didn't seem to make a whole lot of difference to the birth rate in Japan. So if the speed dating was sort of effective and matched people up and still didn't increase the birth rate, then can we really expect that an app, even if it's effective to match people up, is going to increase the birth rate? One has to be skeptical. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons
Right.
for why Japan's birth rate is the way it is, but this app seems a bit of a grasping at straws, gimmicky kind of thing.
Just for fun, I asked ChatGPT about give us some, suggestions about how to increase the birth rate in Japan, right? And I'll tell you like what I came up with. It's quite interesting. So improving work-life balance, that's first thing. Well, this doesn't seem to work.
We
The
can talk
second
about
option is financial incentive and support. We know by fact, I wrote extensively about this and never worked. It started in the 90s, never worked any financial incentives. Accessibility to childcare. This also, it's a bit of a like, I mean, I know this in particular, it's not really a big problem. It's not really a big issue. Plus, accessible childcare, it becomes a problem when you already have a child. Support for working parents, family-friendly policies are already acted. I mean, a woman can go basically a year off and still get a salary or 80% of the salary at the moment. But what I found interesting is that at the fifth point, it comes to what I think it's the only solution to increase the birth rate. And it is the family planning education. So promote awareness about the benefit and options for family planning throughout the public campaigns and education programs. So what does it mean? And this is what I think, when I've been asked about this, is what could really improve fertility in Japan? Well, the only solution will be, just raise a new generation of people. They actually want to get married soon as possible, in their 20s, not in their late 30s. Encourage people to think of a family to be something to strive to have multiple children, to be something positively affect your life. I think that would be, if you want to increase the birth rate, I think that would be the only solution.
A lot of analysts on this say that no matter what might happen tomorrow, if tomorrow we were miraculously able to get people to get together and they all fell pregnant at the same time, we still probably wouldn't see a reversal of the current downward demographic trend for another 25 years.
Right.
Because it's the people being born now having babies in the future that is going to turn it all around. And so it has to be looked at as a long-term issue, because I believe you mentioned that, you know, back in the 90s, back in the 80s, even as early as the 70s, analysts could see that this was happening, that the birth rate was beginning to fall. I mean, it didn't fall to less than stability until I think sometime in the 90s, but we were starting to see it fall much, much earlier than that. So it's been a long time coming. It's going to be a long time to get fixed, no matter what. We've got all these politicians who are wringing their hands about it and seem to be thinking that they can come up with some magic bullet solution that's going to make it better tomorrow. That's not going to happen. So when the Tokyo metropolitan government has, you know, announced their plan to make this app, you know, to qualify to participate in the app and have your information in there, they're going to require that people certify that they really do want to get married. And right there, you wonder how many people are even going to sign up for this thing. Because I think there are a lot of young people out there right now who are looking at it going, I don't think so. You know, and of course they've picked a cute name for the app. I think it's going to be Tokyo Futari Story. So the story of the two of us.
Yeah, right.
And to try and generate that as a romantic notion. Yeah. But the fact is, you talk to a lot of young people today in Japan as a post-industrialized society, and they're saying, you know, I'm kind of happy on my own. I've got my good circle of friends. I don't need romance. I've got other stuff. Economic structures are actually a disincentive for people to get married. Young men in Japan still carry the social baggage of, I have to be able to provide for my spouse, for my family. And if I'm not a good provider, I don't dare ask someone to marry me, or I can't get somebody to be attracted in marrying me because they don't see me as economically stable. So we've got these opposing forces. You know, a government that is proactively, on the one hand, proactively telling companies that they should use these temporary employment forms to save themselves money and not make commitments to employees. And then you've got the government telling people that they should, get married and make commitments. And the two things are at odds with each other.
Whenever I go to Tokyo, because Tokyo is you know, where everything happens, is the hub of basically job-seeking people in Japan, all over Japan. And I see women in their 20s going to Tokyo to have their jobs and spending somewhere like between maybe 30-40%, sometimes even 50% of their initial salary on rent. And they go on like this, having their 9-to-5 job for years and years, especially those employed by big companies or by government, until their 30s, and then they suddenly realize, what have I done with my life? I mean, seriously, what have they done with their lives? They spend these 10 years basically paying rent, and sometimes, like, not even too much lately with this new generation, going out and, you know, whatever, participating in the
having a good time.
Exactly. That's not even happening that much. You know, most of these women actually spend their time watching Netflix. I spoke to a lot of them. Netflix is once entertainment for the category of women that, you know, in another generation would have had children and been raising children. One of the other things, like, most of them compensate, I'm sure you noticed this, by, you know, buying a dog, buying a cat.
Trying to have that career at the same time as they're married and have in-laws that expect them to be a professional housewife, to reproduce and stay at home and be the one to do all the work at home and raise the children and do everything affiliated with the children. And when the previous generation gets old, to stay at home and look after them, right? You can't do all of that and have a career. And so women are presented with this cognitive dissonance that makes the whole thing uncomfortable for them. And when they look at that, they kind of say, well, you know, is getting married and having kids worth that, all the hassle? Actually, I'm pretty happy going to work and having a fulfilling job, and maybe, you know, chilling out watching Netflix, or going shopping with my friends, or learning ballroom dance, or whatever it is, but none of it really needs a man.
Can we agree? Can we agree on the fact that this new lifestyle, social life, career, watching Netflix, doesn't make them happy? Can we agree on this?
I don't know. I've never talked to anybody about
I
that.
I
I
have
really
a lot
couldn't say.
extensively, and I'm telling
And
you,
and
they're not.
and I can well picture that, you know, you get to your mid-30s and suddenly you hear that biological clock going tick tock, and it's getting louder and louder and louder, and you're saying, "Oh my God, I missed something."
I think a lot of young women, especially those that are not originally from Tokyo, but they somehow moved to Tokyo like for the usual university and then finding a job. You know, there's this osana najimi, there is this friendship between people, especially that during the high school years, okay? So these people get in contact, they stay in contact for many years throughout their lives. And when one of these girls, especially a group of girls that I know, gets pregnant and then they had two children, and it kind of spreads this idea that it's possible and that it's actually something that you could want to look for. And I've seen this between this group of 6 friends that every
Are you
year,
saying pregnancy is contagious?
yes, and every year, every one of them had a child, and now all 6 of them had a child. But wait, not only that, and consider one of them is still having a career as an architect in Tokyo, and she's still pursuing that. But she felt the pressure, the Dochatsu Ryokyu, that you know the social pressure that Japanese is very famous for. It works also the other way.
Yeah, you can also feel huge social pressure to get married and have children.
Yes,
Absolutely. But, you know, is somebody going to be happy succumbing to social pressure in either direction?
well, they are.
You know, I mean,
They
is
are
that
already succumbing to the social pressure of moving to Tokyo, which to me is absurd. Why would you want to move into a city which is overcrammed, which is the cost of living is ridiculous, and the quality of living, you only have chain stores everywhere basically, and you
well,
got
and of course
street.
you see this with COVID, the number of people who, because they were permitted to work remotely, work from home, were moving out of Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
They're only in Tokyo to make a living.
Exactly.
And if they can make a living outside of Tokyo, where the quality of life is better, they're going to go there.
Yeah.
And you are seeing that. You're seeing prefectural programs to encourage people to leave Tokyo and try and hold on to their careers even in other places.
One of the problems is going to be really huge in a few years. It's that you have now. If you just look around, there's a lot of mothers. They're already in their 40s. They're having this kid, and they, you know, and I spoke to a few of them, and their major concern is that their physical health. They already having problems just holding the babies. I met this mother was like, you know, like my whole arm was like completely aching, in pain all the time because she couldn't hold the baby all the time because of her age. But of course, you know, you got to be healthy. You got to be young, you know, to raise a baby.
So maybe 25 years ago, that women marrying very young was briefly quite a trend. I think it was because some very famous singer married at the age of 20 or 21, so everybody was doing it. But I think they weren't emotionally ready for the commitment of marriage, and those marriages didn't last. We are also seeing the divorce, you know, the marriage rate is falling in Japan, but the divorce rate is rising.
Meeting a lot of people, especially in the younger generations, I can tell you, like, they have a very bad communication skills. They're very, very bad in one-to-one, just sharing things. Sharing. I mean, Japanese radically, they are not used to share private things. You know, they never
Except
share
their
a place with
parents.
anybody. And all of a sudden, once they get married, they share a place with somebody that's a total stranger, and
It's a shock.
Exactly.
No, I mean, the whole concept of privacy has changed in Japan in the last 30 years. Right? When I first went to Japan, you know, the entire family would be all in the same room of an evening, kids doing homework, dad reading the paper, mom watching TV, and everybody's in the same room, right? They're all bathing together. They might even all sleep in the same room, but now kids have their own bedrooms and they spend all their time in their bedrooms. And yeah, they don't learn that kind of social interaction. There's the social interaction at school, but there too, you know, the teachers are like, we're all friends, aren't we? And so they never learn conflict resolution. You know, these social issues are out there as well. And yeah, like as you say, if you've only ever been in your own nuclear family, and in fact you spend all your time in your bedroom, you don't even really interact with anybody in your nuclear family, which of course is smaller than nuclear families were 30 years ago. You got no social skills to speak of. And then, as you say, suddenly you're thrust into a situation where, somebody else gets to see your dirty underwear, and you really don't know how to cope with that. But and you've got, two people together who are both in that situation. So you're right. That's probably part of that issue as well. And so for a lot of people, they just get to the point where, being alone isn't that bad.
Yes, unfortunately. That's exactly the case, unfortunately. Let's close it there. Thank you so much for joining us today, Vicki.
My pleasure. Let's hope that more Japanese people can find partners in this life.